He conquered the known world by 32 without a single defeat, yet died trapped in a fever dream of his own paranoia. The roots of this behavior reach back to his youth in Macedonia. Alexander lived under the suffocating shadow of his father, King Philip, a ruler whose military expansion was so rapid that his son openly feared there would be nothing truly great left for him to do. His mother, Olympias, weaponized this insecurity. She drilled him in the Greek concept of arete, an ideal of unmatched excellence, while whispering that he wasn't Philip's son at all, but was instead descended from mythical heroes like Achilles and Hercules. When Philip was assassinated, the 20-year-old Alexander seized the throne and immediately turned that obsession with excellence into a tool of terror. He crushed a Greek rebellion by leveling the city of Thebes to the ground, slaughtering thousands and selling the survivors into slavery to silence any further dissent. Alexander wasn't marching into Asia merely to expand a border. He was launching a psychological crusade to transform himself into a living god, ready to destroy anyone who stood in his path. To counter the overwhelming scale of the Persian Empire, Alexander prioritized pre-battle intelligence. He utilized prodromoi, or lightly armored scouts, to map terrain and predict troop movements before his main army ever made contact. This information fed the mechanics of the Macedonian phalanx. By using interlocking shields and massive spears, he created an impenetrable moving wall that could absorb charges and dismantle traditional infantry with mechanical precision. Encountering the impenetrable island fortress of Tyre, he built a 1-kilometer land bridge through the sea to reach the walls. At the causeway's end, he deployed 150-foot-tall towers, allowing troops to rain projectiles and break the city from above. This technical mastery peaked at the Battle of Gaugamela. Despite being heavily outnumbered, Alexander used a targeted cavalry strike to puncture a hole in the Persian line, decisively defeating King Darius III. After 12 years without a loss, the internal narrative of the army began to shift. Alexander started to view these victories not as the result of engineering and scouts, but as proof that he was no longer bound by human limitations. His military pragmatism gave way to a need to mirror his mythical role models. After the siege of Gaza, he dragged Commander Baetis by the ankles around the city walls behind a chariot, specifically to emulate Achilles. Seeking confirmation of this divine status, he marched his army into the Egyptian desert to find the Oracle of Siwa. He was searching for proof that his father wasn't Philip, but a god. The Oracle declared him the son of Zeus Ammon. From that point on, Alexander's face was minted with the curled horns of a deity, signifying that in his own mind he was now a living god. This conviction fractured his inner circle. He began demanding proskynesis, a form of ritual bowing, from his Macedonian generals, men who had bled for him for a decade and viewed the act of worshipping a mortal as an insult. The tension frequently erupted into violence. During a drunken rage, he murdered his close friend Clytus, the very man who had saved his life in battle, simply for questioning his vanity. He continued to push thousands of miles eastward into the brutal terrain of India, obsessively seeking the edge of the world, until his exhausted and terrified troops finally staged a mutiny. As the empire reached its absolute physical limits, Alexander's world became a house of mirrors. He was surrounded only by fear, where his commanders lived in terror and no one dared speak the truth. He retreated to Babylon at 32, physically ravaged by frontline combat and over a decade of exhaustion. It was here that he was stricken by a sudden, mysterious fever. His final failure was born from his own hubris. Because he saw himself as a god, he had made no plans for a future without him, famously leaving his vast empire to the strongest. The empire shattered almost instantly. His generals turned on each other in a series of bloody civil wars that eventually led to the systematic extermination of Alexander's entire family line. The human cost of his personal crusade was staggering, with millions dead in the wake of his relentless push for immortality. Alexander achieved the mythical immortality he so desperately craved, but his legacy was a monument to a man who died